Yo, what is going on, guys? Your boy Fnatic, and I'm back with another video. So today I'm going to be trying to decide what are the 10 biggest SEC games of the 2019 and 2020 season, the 10 games that will decide the SEC, in my opinion, in descending order from 10 to 1. So let's go ahead and get into the video. So coming in at number 10, we have the Week 6 matchup between the Auburn Tigers on the road against the Florida Gators. I think it's a very, very fascinating matchup, not only because I think these teams match up very well and it will be an incredibly close game, but also for the fact that I think it's an elimination game, because you look at Auburn, if they lose to Florida, they're going to have to beat both LSU, Texas A&M, and Alabama to win the West, and I just don't see that happening for Auburn. And if Florida loses to Auburn, they're going to have to beat both LSU and Georgia, and I just don't see that happening. So in my opinion, this is a must-win for both these teams if they want to win the SEC. That's why I think this game is so fascinating, and that's why it cracks the top 10. So coming in at number 9, we have a very, very interesting matchup between the Texas A&M Aggies on the road against the Georgia Bulldogs in Week 13, which is normally Cupcake Week, but this is a very, very big matchup. I think it's a very, very intriguing matchup because both these teams are going to have to be careful, because Georgia is coming off an Auburn game and going into a Georgia Tech game. So that's going to be very, very difficult for them to focus solely on Texas A&M. And Texas A&M has LSU the week after this game. So both these teams, I think, are going to be distracted by rivalry week. And so it could end up everywhere. This could be a very, very interesting game. You know, Georgia, if they're in the top of the East, can get knocked down by a surprise win by Texas A&M. And if Texas A&M at this point is on top of the West, then Georgia can come in and knock them down. So I think it's a kind of last obstacle of the season for the Georgia Bulldogs and the Texas A&M Aggies, and I think it should be a very, very entertaining and intriguing matchup. So Auburn once again is popping up on this list in Week 9 at number 8 against LSU, Tiger on Tiger. This game is always fun because the winner of this game is usually the person that's going to challenge Alabama or has the best shot to challenge Alabama. I think it's a kind of a number 1 contender matchup for who's going to challenge Alabama in the rest of the season. If Auburn loses, they don't really have a chance to challenge Alabama. If LSU loses, they don't really have a chance to challenge Alabama. It's always fun to see this matchup, not only because it's Tiger versus Tiger, and it's always a very entertaining and close game, especially in the past couple of years, but this is a number 1 contendership matchup, and if you win, you are in the driver's seat to challenge Alabama for that SEC West title. So I think this should be a great game and an important game, and that's why I put it here at number 8. So Auburn pops up for the 3rd time out of 4 games so far. Auburn has a lot of very important SEC games this year, as you can definitely tell. In Week 12, number 7, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, one of the oldest rivalries in college football. It's always entertaining to see this game because it's kind of late in the year. Both teams are at their best by this point, and sometimes Auburn comes on top, sometimes Georgia comes on top. It is not a one-sided rivalry. It's always entertaining to see. And this year it's especially big because I feel like it's a can't-lose situation for either team. Auburn, I feel like there's no way they're going to beat Alabama, Texas A&M, Alabama. No, I already said Alabama. LSU, and Florida. So they have to beat Georgia here to be able to slip up in one of those games. Auburn has an extremely difficult schedule here. And Georgia, I feel like they're going to slip up against either Notre Dame, Florida, or Texas A&M. So they have to beat Auburn here. It is a must-win game, and if you lose, you will not be the SEC champion. And that's why I think this game is important enough to put at number 7. So Auburn pops up once again here, this time in the Iron Bowl in Week 14 rivalry week, at coming in at number 6 against the Alabama Crimson Tide, their mortal in-state rivals. Normally this game is more important, but I don't think Auburn will only lose one game out of their games against Texas A&M, LSU, Florida, Oregon, Georgia. The games mount up. It's going to be extremely difficult for Auburn to be able to get in this game and have a real shot to win the SEC West, much less even upset Alabama. But the thing is, what if Auburn does? What if they do only slip up once out of those 5 difficult games? And what if they beat Alabama here? Or what if Auburn doesn't have a shot, but they're able to beat Alabama here and Alabama doesn't take them seriously? Maybe teams like LSU or Texas A&M can slide up there in the number 1 spot and upset Alabama in the West. You know, partly I'm just putting it here because it's of a lot of historical significance. It's one of the greatest rivalries in college football. I don't think Auburn has much of a chance to beat Alabama, but nevertheless, this is always an important game, and I think it'll be no different this year. That's why I put them at number 6. So coming in at number 5 in Week 14 rivalry week, I'm going to put this here not only because it is a huge rivalry and it has produced many entertaining games in the past couple years, especially last year in that 7 overtime game. I believe it was the highest scoring game in college football history. But this, in my opinion, is the number 1 contendership for Alabama. I feel like if either Texas A&M or LSU beats Alabama, this is the game that will decide who wins the West if they're able to knock off Alabama. If neither of them can knock off Alabama, then it's useless. But I think that either Texas A&M or LSU will beat Alabama, and if they can beat each other here, I feel like they will be the West champions. This is a huge game. This is the number 1 contendership for Alabama. And if Alabama slips up, the winner of this game will be the SEC West champions. That's why I think it is a huge, important game. That's why I put it here at number 5. So another iconic rivalry as LSU is once again back in this list, this time at number 4 against their huge rival Alabama. This will be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So I think I'd give the win to Alabama here. I was tempted to put this around my number 3 or number 2 spot, but I think Texas A&M has a higher chance to beat Alabama than LSU does. That's why you will see the Texas A&M Alabama game later on. But I do think LSU has a shot, and if LSU can beat Alabama, and if they beat Texas A&M, we will finally have a change in the West. You know, I think this rivalry is bigger than the Auburn-Alabama rivalry, not for historical importance or for pure hatred. It's because it's always entertaining. You know, it might be kind of a one-sided rivalry. Alabama might have won like the past 6 or 7, but it's always kind of a close game. I think the biggest beatdown that it's been was 29-0, which in the Auburn-Alabama rivalry, there's plenty of blowouts, and I think competitiveness is the thing that makes a rivalry. That's why this rivalry is so great. I think that Alabama will win this game here and move on to face Texas A&M in the big penultimate SEC West match. But if LSU can somehow pull off an upset, LSU is going to be in the driver's seat to be the SEC West champions. That's why I think that this game is so huge. So this game is not only big for the SEC championship, but it's big for college football playoffs. That's why I put it here at number 3. You know, if Florida loses this game, they're going to have to beat Georgia. If LSU loses this game, they're going to have to beat Alabama. The loser of this game will have to face their demons if they want to not only win the SEC championship, but make it to the college football playoff. That's why I think this game is so important and is so big, because the loser of this game is going to have to climb an uphill battle. I think LSU is probably going to win this game because I think Florida is going to be focused on Georgia in a couple weeks, and Alabama and LSU face a little bit farther after this. But, you know, this has been a very entertaining, very big rivalry. I love this rivalry. It's always a fun matchup, and I think it will be the same this year in an extremely competitive game. But I'm going to give the win to LSU, and I think Florida is going to have to face their demons in Georgia. And I think the loser of this game will not make the college football playoffs. You heard me right now. The loser of this game, I don't think will make the college football playoffs because they're going to have to climb such an uphill battle. I think they have a chance to win the SEC championship, not make the playoffs. So this is more about the playoffs, but it still has a lot of importance in terms of the SEC. So that's why I put it here at number 3. So coming in at number 2, the game in my mind that will decide the SEC West, I think Texas A&M is the biggest challenger to Alabama. It's not Auburn. It's not LSU. I think Texas A&M is better than Auburn and has Alabama at home instead of on the road. I see a lot of flashes of Johnny Manziel and Kellen Mond just without the off-the-field issues, and I think we could have a rehash of that Alabama-Texas A&M game back in 2012, where Kellen Mond will go crazy and just use his legs to torment this Alabama defense and maybe pull off an upset. So I think that the winner of this game will be the SEC West champion. You heard me right. And I think it is not crazy to say that Texas A&M could be that team. So I think this is a huge game, and this Texas A&M crowd is going to go wild the entire game. We get to see Jimbo Fisher versus Nick Saban, the rematch once again. That should be incredible. Kellen Mond against this Bama defense. Bama does not have a great track record with mobile QBs, and that is exactly what Kellen Mond is. This is Kellen Mond's moment to rise. I keep on mentioning his name because this is his game to prove that he is the future of Texas A&M football and has a future in the NFL. So I think this is the game to decide the SEC West. That's why I'm putting it here at number 2. So coming in at number 1, and in my opinion, the biggest game in the SEC, it is the Georgia Bulldogs and the Florida Gators in Jacksonville at a neutral site. Some people may ask, why is this above the Texas A&M game and the Alabama game? Well, I have some doubts if the Texas A&M game and the Alabama game will decide the winner of the SEC West. There is no doubts here. The winner of this game will win the SEC East and will go to the SEC Championship. Kentucky is not going to win it. Nobody else besides these two teams are going to win it. That's why this game is so important. The winner of this game, in my opinion, well, not even my opinion, it's the fact, will be the SEC East champion and go to the SEC Championship. Florida's not going to lose 2 games outside of the Georgia game. Georgia's not going to lose 2 games outside of the Florida game. This is the game to decide it all. All the marbles will be put on the table in this entertaining, close, physical battle. I think this will be one of the best games of the year, one of the most important games of the year, not even in the SEC, outside the SEC. I think this is, you can make an argument this is the most important game of the year in any conference. I think this is a huge game with so much importance, and it will decide the winner of the SEC East. No doubts in my mind. That's why I put this slightly ahead of the Texas A&M and Alabama game. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Keep an eye out for a schedule preview for another SEC team later on today. But I certainly enjoyed making this video. It's very, very interesting to really take a dive into all the SEC team schedules and pick, in my opinion, the 10 biggest SEC games, the 10 games to decide the SEC East, from cross-division rivals to rivalry week games to potential cupcake games that could end up in disaster to just everything culminating in 10 huge games. I think the SEC will be so fun to watch this year, so entertaining, just so exciting the entire year. I could not be more excited for the future of the SEC football league, and I think the SEC, even though, you know, it has its haters, is the best conference for reasons like this. Huge games like this that are just so entertaining and so fun to watch. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Have an amazing day, and peace.